Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to do a little preview of what's coming up next month. And the theme for next month is both sides now. And we tend to be kind of one-sided. We kind of use one side of ourselves more than the other, and we tend to forget the other side of ourselves as we're doing things. So the goal of today is to get in touch with our other side and start to realize and become aware of how our two sides could work together to make the things we're doing much easier to do. So let's just start by standing. We'll just let everybody stand for a moment.
I'm not seeing you on the screen.
Uh, well, my video is showing. I'm not sure why. Are you seeing Ruby or Des or anybody
No,
else?
nobody. I'm seeing Zoom. Let me try. Oh, oh, okay. I think we're okay now.
Oh, good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So just taking a moment to stand, just notice the two sides of yourself as you're standing. Notice if one foot contacts the floor differently than the other foot. Maybe you have more weight on one foot than the other foot. You may notice the differences between your two arms. One arm may be longer than the other arm. One arm may be more turned in than the other arm. It's interesting to notice the differences between our two sides at the beginning of the lesson, so we can notice if things start to become a little bit more symmetrical by the end of the lesson. If we made some changes in our posture, in our nervous system, the way we're standing. The other thing you can do is shift your weight to one leg and then the other leg, and notice the difference between shifting your leg from one leg to the other leg. Notice if you feel more supported, if your weight feels more supported on one side than it does on the other side. Do you feel like you get taller over one leg, and when you shift over to the other leg, you don't get taller? Maybe you sway out to the side more? So it's interesting to notice there's something as simple as shifting the weight, how there can be a big difference between the way we do it from one side to the other side. And then we may also notice differences turning to look over one shoulder and then turning to look over the other shoulder. You may notice that it may be much easier to look over one shoulder than the other shoulder. What makes it easier? What are you doing on the one side that creates more comfort and ease that's not really happening at the other side? And you may not know right now, which is fine. That may be something you find during the course of today. And then the last thing we'll do before we lie down is just walk around a little bit and notice the differences of your two sides when you walk. You may feel more supported, more stable, more balanced on one side than you do on the other side. One way to tell is notice that when you shift your weight onto one leg, do you tend to get taller over that one leg as you shift your weight onto it? And maybe the other leg, you tend to drift to the side more. The arm swings may be different. You may notice that one arm may swing more easily and further than the other arm. One arm may swing more toward the front of you when the other arm may be more out toward the side. So we're just getting a feel of the differences between our two sides as we walk. Particularly noticing which side is easier, nicer, more pleasant, more comfortable. Which side do we like better? And then noticing the differences between the two. How you support yourself on your feet. What role the shoulders and arms play in walking. Whether one side holds more than the other side. One side may be swinging freely and the other side may be holding back. A lot of different possibilities. Slowly make your way to the floor and lie on your back. Let yourself settle on your back. And again, if you're uncomfortable with your legs long, you could always use a roller under your legs to have yourself being more comfortable. Yeah, take your time to comfortably put yourself in a nice position. Arms by your sides, legs long. Notice the differences between the two legs. And we're going to start with this. Notice how one leg is more turned out, which means your toes are closer to the floor than the toes on the other leg. So feel for yourself which leg is more turned out. And the leg that's most turned out, does that feel longer or flatter than the other leg? Does it feel flatter on the floor? You feel more of that leg heavier on the floor? Just comparing the two legs. Which leg is closer to the floor? Which foot is more turned out than the other foot? And one thing that you can do to kind of feel what's going on in the leg that's not turned out as much, with the leg that's turned out, just turn that leg in a little bit and feel what muscles tighten to turn that leg in a little bit. And that will give you an idea of what muscles may be tightening to hold that other leg up away from the floor. So if you feel one part of you more turned out than the other part of you, to get an idea what's going on in the other part, what you can do is just turn in that one leg and you can feel what works to turn in the leg. And that will give you an idea of what's maybe the muscle tension, the muscle holding that's occurring in the other leg. Okay, so let both legs go and soften. Let's do the same thing with the arms. Is one arm more turned in, meaning it's one palm closer to the floor than the other palm? Or turned in, maybe one elbow faces more away from you than the other elbow. And again, which arm is longer and flatter? Is it the one where the palm is turned more to the floor or the one where the palm's turned more away from the floor? Which arm is flatter on the floor? Which arm feels longer on the floor? Which arm feels heavier on the floor? Which shoulder blade feels more lifted away from the floor? Is it the palm that turns in, or is it the palm that's more turned out? And you can do the same thing with the arms. So if there's one arm where you feel more of the back of the hand on the floor, turn that arm in a little bit. Notice what happens to your elbow. No, notice what happens to your shoulder blade as you turn the arm in. Notice what muscles are working. And then let it go and notice what muscles are softening, what muscles are letting go. So that's one way that we can kind of get an idea about what part of ourselves may be holding tension and where that tension may be held. Just by doing a little bit with a part of ourselves that feels less tension and more free, but in putting it in the same place, we can feel what muscles have to work, what muscles have to hold to keep that arm in position. So these are interesting ways of learning some new things about yourself. And then what you can do is just let that arm go. And once you can feel what you let go in the one arm, see if you can let go of the same things in the other arm. Now let's do the center part of ourselves. So feel that your pelvis on the floor. And notice which side of the pelvis may feel heavier on the floor or flatter on the floor. Is it the side with the leg that's turned out more, or is it the other side? Which one feels a little heavier, a little flatter on the floor? And then notice which side of the lower back may feel a little bit more lifted from the floor. Is it on the side of the leg that turns out, or is it on the other side, the leg that's not turned out as much? And climb up the spine and see if you can feel a difference of the rib cage. Notice if one side of the rib cage is feeling heavier or flatter on the floor, and which side it is, and how that may relate to the arms and the legs. And go through the neck, noticing the space between the back of the neck and the floor. And if I notice how your head rests on the floor, where do you feel your head contacting the floor? Is it a little bit toward one side? Is it a little toward the top of the head? Or is it toward the base of the skull? Where does the floor contact the back of the head? And now just get a complete picture of your two sides, right? Start with the arms and legs, noticing which leg is turned out more, noticing which arm is turned out more. And then the right side of the pelvis, the left side of the pelvis, the right side of the rib cage. And there's all kinds of different combinations. Your right leg may be turned out more, but your left arm may be turned out more. Or you may have both the arm and leg on one side turned out more. So there's many different combinations of the way we may be arranged at this moment. Let that go and just kind of shake out your arms and your legs a little bit. You haven't been moving for a little bit, so we're just going to let you move a little bit. Okay, for the first part of this lesson, you can just have your arms in a comfortable position. Your legs are going to stay long, but you're going to have your feet about shoulder width apart or more. So yeah, almost so your heels would make a diagonal line from your heels to your knees to your hip to your opposite shoulder. right? So your two legs would make the bottom part of an X. Okay, it looks like everybody found that. And the first movement is simple, just lengthen one leg and feel which leg did you choose to lengthen. You're going to make one leg a little longer and then come back. And just notice how you do that. Do you do anything with the foot? Does the foot maybe point downward and flex upward? Or does the foot just stay fairly quiet and it's more of the knee extending and the length going through from the hip joint? So just kind of find how you're lengthening. Slowly come back and just stay with the first leg that you chose for a while. Get a feeling of how you do this. How do you breathe? Do you tend to breathe in when you lengthen the leg, or do you tend to breathe out as you lengthen the leg? Or maybe your breath is independent of the lengthening of the legs. But find for yourself which way of breathing while lengthening the leg feels the nicest. Is it nicer to exhale as the leg gets longer, or is it nicer to exhale as you shorten the leg? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just what you prefer. Or does it really not matter at all? It may not. Both sides may feel perfectly fine. Both ways of breathing. Now notice the lengthening of the leg. If you're soft and if you're quiet, it creates an echo through the rest of you. And just get a sense of how the movement echoes through the rest of you as your one leg lengthens. What does your other leg do? As your one leg lengthens, does your pelvis do anything? Do you feel anything in the rib cage? Is there any movement in the arms? Does the movement go up to the chest, to the shoulders? How does this movement of lengthening one leg radiate? And then let's get a little bit more specific. As your one leg lengthens and gets longer, what other parts of you get longer? What other parts do you feel getting longer with your leg? As you lengthen the one leg, what parts of you get shorter? As certain parts of you get longer and the movement echoes, radiates throughout you, what do you feel shortening? Okay, let that go. If you want, you can bend your knees, you can stand your feet. If you feel like hugging your knees and rocking side to side, you can. Just put yourself in a really comfortable position for the breaks. This next part, we're going to explore a little bit the effect of holding. And we'll do that a few different ways. Put your legs in the same position. You're going to lengthen the legs. They're going to make that bottom part of an X. And see what it's like to lengthen the same leg. We're going to lengthen that same leg. Bring it back. Now hold your breath and hold your jaw as you do it, and notice what that does to the movement. Just do one or two, and then you can start breathing again. Noticing how holding it the breath and holding the jaw. And if you want, you could even hold the eyes and stare at something with the eyes and just noticing what happens to the quality of movement when you do that. And then let yourself breathe in that nice way. Soften your eyes, take it in the whole room. Open the jaw a little bit. Let there be a little space between your teeth. And notice the quality of the movement now. And these are common places to hold. So during any lesson, you can always bring your attention to what your eyes are doing, what your jaw is doing, how your breathing is, and see if you could change those things in such a way to make the quality of movement nicer. Okay. So with the leg that you're lengthening, what you're going to do is you're going to flex the other foot up so the toe goes upward toward your head, and you're going to make a fist with the other hand. Right? So now we're holding the opposite side. The foot's being held, the arm's being held in place by making that fist. And lengthen the leg again and see what the holding of the one side does to the lengthening of the other side. Yeah, the other leg doesn't have to hold. The other leg's just lengthening. The other leg's just getting longer and coming back. So let the other, if you're lengthening the right leg, let your right foot go. You don't need to tighten the right foot. You're just going to tighten the left foot. See what it's like to lengthen and come back as you do that. And you'll notice if you hold your left side, it interferes with the movement of the right leg lengthening. Now let go of your left foot, let go of your left hand, and just simply lengthen the leg that you've been lengthening and notice the difference of the quality of movement when you're not holding. Noticing the quality of the movement when you're not holding. Noticing what gets long as you lengthen the legs, but also noticing what's getting short as you lengthen the legs. Is there an equal and an opposite thing going on with you? As some parts of you get longer, do you notice how the opposite part of you gets shorter? Where are you finding that? And give yourself a nice little break. And just check in with the floor a little bit. Check your right side, check your left side. Are you feeling anything different? Which side's turned out more now? Which leg's turned out more? Which arm's turned out more? Which leg feels flatter? Which leg feels longer? Which leg feels heavier on the floor? Same thing with the arms. What are you feeling differently on the floor now that you've done a few movements? Let's continue. So lengthen the same leg. And as you lengthen this leg and come back to the starting position, notice what your other leg does. You can notice as one gets longer, the other one gets shorter. As one foot moves away from you, the other one kind of goes towards you. So pay attention of just really feeling the movement of the shortening. You're lengthening the right leg, but you're noticing how this other leg or whatever leg you choose to lengthen, you're lengthening, and you're noticing how that other leg shortens. Now put your attention on shortening the left leg. Instead of shortening the other leg, because some people may be lengthening the left leg. So instead of lengthening the leg, you're thinking about shortening the other leg. Can you do the movement by shortening the other leg? This is something kind of different. If it's hard for you to find the movement shortening the other leg, just pay attention what happens when you lengthen the leg that you've been lengthening. Pay attention and feel what happens, and then see if you can initiate the movement from the shortening, not from the lengthening. Initiating the movement by making parts of you shorter. And then alternate between the two. One time, do the movement by lengthening. The next time, do the movement by shortening. And which one's easier for you? Is it easier for you to lengthen to do the movement, or is it easier for you to shorten to do the movement? So now you started the movement by lengthening, you started the movement by shortening. What would happen if you blended both together, that you think lengthening and shortening at the same time, shortening and lengthening at the same time? As the one side lengthened, the other side shortened. So rather than the movement being an echo through you, going through you, the movement synchronized that they both start at the same time, they both do the same amount, they both finish and stop at the same time. Is it possible to create the movement from both sides of yourself? By one side shortening and the other side lengthening, that these two things working and moving together create the movement. All right. Now we've come up with 3 ways of doing this. We came up with one way, which is the lengthening. So you can do that. You can make the movement by lengthening and feel it echo through you. The second way we did this was shortening. You can do the movement by shortening parts of yourself to create the movement. And feel how that echoes through you. And then the third choice is that you can synchronize both together. You can coordinate the two sides, that one will lengthen and the other one will shorten, and they're both actively involved in the movement. You're working both sides now. Good. Give yourself a nice break. You can bend your knees, you can hug your chest, you can move however you want to move around a little bit. Okay, let's continue to play with these ideas. So we're going to lengthen the legs on the floor, back in the X position. Lengthen one leg, come back to the starting position, and then lengthen the other leg. Come back, and then come back to the starting position. You're going to lengthen one, come back, lengthen the other leg, come back. Yeah, and the legs stay long. You don't bend the knee. So how can you do the lengthening without really bending the knee and bringing the knee up towards the ceiling? Just keeping the leg long so it slides on the floor. Your leg doesn't lift away from the floor. It slides on the floor. It's just a little movement. And this is what we did the first part of the lesson, right? We're thinking of lengthening. We're thinking about lengthening one side, then we're thinking about coming back, and then we're thinking about lengthening the other side. And then we have the second way of doing this, which is shortening. We can shorten one side and then we can shorten the other side. And just to feel what happens when you hold your breath, hold your jaw, and do the movement of shortening one side and the other side, holding your breath and jaw, and just noticing how that changes the quality of the movement. And when you're ready, you can let that go and let yourself breathe in a nice way and have the jaw free and open and soft. Right, and then if you flex one foot up toward your head, notice how just holding the foot disrupts the quality of movement. And then let that foot go and be soft. And then notice when you're able to let go, when you're able to soften, the movement goes through you easier and you can feel more of yourself becoming involved with the movement. Okay, here's the key one. Now we're going to do both sides now. So as one side, so you think about one side lengthening, you're thinking about the other side softening. You're making both happen at once, and then they both come back together, right? So as one starts to shorten again, the other one starts to lengthen again, and then you do the opposite leg lengthening and the opposite side shortening. And sometimes we forget certain parts of ourselves. So think about your rib cage and think about how one side of the ribs opens. One side of the ribs, right, comes apart, and the other side of the rib cage comes together. So feel how you can use your rib cage and initiate the movement from there, and then you'll find the rest of you will follow your ribs. Okay, and just go back to doing the movement however you like to do the movement, whatever feels nicest, whichever way you enjoyed the most. And then let that go and check in with the floor and notice what's changed on the floor. Notice the degree, amount that the legs are turned out. And if something's changed, maybe you're finding a little more symmetry. Maybe the leg that wasn't as turned out as much is starting to turn out more. And see if the same thing happened with the arms. Notice if there's new parts of the pelvis and the back of the rib cage touching the floor, contacting the floor. Lower back feels closer to the floor, back of the neck feeling closer to the floor. Just noticing the differences. And then shake out the arms and the legs a little bit. Just kind of loosen things up a little before we get into the next part. Okay, for this next part, what you can do is you're going to bring your hands in front of your face. You're going to interlace your fingers. And then you're going to put your palms on the top of your head. And your elbows are going to be out toward the side of your head. Yeah, the legs are long on the floor. And now think of lengthening one elbow. Lengthening one elbow, and that's going to be toward the wall that's above your head, and then come back. Lengthen one elbow, come back, and then lengthen the other elbow, and come back. Notice if one's easier than the other. And as you lengthen that elbow upward, what parts of you do you feel get longer? And what parts do you feel get shorter? And how far down is that going? Does it go down to the pelvis? Does it go down to the knees? Does it go down to the feet? You're lengthening one elbow upward, slowly coming back to the starting position, and then lengthen the other elbow upward. Yeah, the elbow stays out to the side. So the elbow's just kind of out to the side, and it's more going over your head than toward the ceiling. Right? And really pay attention. Notice the distance between your elbow and your foot get longer on one side and shorter on the other side. So think about the length, come back to starting position, and then think about creating that same length on the other side. Right? And that's one way to do the movement. We can make ourselves longer. Think about what happens in the rib cage to help with the movement. Good. Now think about shortening. Instead of one elbow lengthening up over your head, think of the elbow moving downwards towards your foot. And then come back to the starting position, and then think of the other elbow coming downward towards your foot. And again, as the elbow goes down toward your foot, what parts of you get shorter? And how can you use that shortening to help create the movement? So instead of thinking long, we're thinking short. This is a really good strategy for people who have injuries and have trouble lifting their arm over their head or lifting their arm upward. Instead of thinking about trying to lift that one arm upward, think about bringing the other arm downward. And notice if you think about bringing your right elbow downward, your left elbow will just move upward easily. So if anybody has any injuries, think about moving from the other side and how you can move from the other side to initiate the movement. And that's going to help take the strain off the injured side and help get some movement back on the injured side, which shouldn't cause any pain or discomfort. This is a really good strategy. I used it many a time. Okay, give yourself a little break. Just shake out the arms, shake out the legs. Little break. We're almost there. We got one last little part to play with. Okay. So interlace your fingers, but move it over one so they're not quite the same way. Do it the way you normally do it, and then just slide the fingers over one, just so you get a different sensation and a different feeling of the fingers. And put your palms on top of your head. And what you're going to do is you're going to lengthen the right elbow and the right foot away from each other. Come back to the starting position and then lengthen the left elbow and the left foot away from each other. Okay? So really think about one side getting really, really long and the other side getting really, really, really short. And make it a whole body movement. So the arm and the leg, the upper and the lower body are working together to create this lengthening and shortening. All right, and you can think long first. Yeah, get the legs are flat on the ground. The legs are flat on the ground. And you're just thinking of this side bending movement. Yeah, kind of like a snake. Feeling how you can use the lengthening and the shortening to move the elbow and the foot away from each other. And you can think getting longer, coming back, getting longer on the other side, or you can think getting shorter on one side, coming back, and then getting shorter on the other side. And then you can think of the Joni Mitchell song, Both Sides Now, and you can think of actively lengthening one side as you shorten the other side. The two sides moving together, working together to create the movement. Blending the two movements together. So they're both sides of you are actively involved rather than one side leading the parade and the other side following. Okay, and just because it's Feldenkrais, we're going to put in the Feldenkrais curveball. So what you're going to do is you're going to lengthen the right elbow is going to go upward over your head, and the left leg is going to go downward. So it's a diagonal lengthening. From the elbow to the right elbow to the left foot gets long. Come back to the starting position, and then the left elbow to the right foot gets long. How are you going to create this diagonal lengthening? This is kind of a whole different ball game and a whole different type thing. Now, rather than just one side of you getting long, it's a little bit more complex. You have one arm getting longer and one leg getting longer. How are you putting that together? And can you picture these diagonals in your mind and just see one diagonal getting really long, coming back. You can close your eyes and then see the diagonal that makes the elbow to the right foot. See that diagonal getting long and coming back. So visualize it. And then see the diagonal getting short, the right elbow to left foot diagonal getting short, and then the left elbow to right foot diagonal getting short. Sometimes if you visualize these diagonals, it helps. And then finally, see if you can visualize the whole thing. One diagonal getting longer as the other one gets shorter. One diagonal gets longer as the other one gets shorter. Can you see that in your mind's eye? You see this X on the floor, and you can see one diagonal line of the X getting long as the other one gets short. And then it comes back, makes that X shape again, and then the opposite happens. Just kind of play with that image in your mind. And then one last time, just lengthen the right elbow and the right foot. Come back, lengthen the left elbow and the left foot and come back and feel how much easier that is now. Wonderful. Return your arms to a comfortable position by your sides. Let your legs return to a comfortable position too. You want to move the legs in a little, feel free. And just feel how you are on the floor now. If you want, you can look at your feet. And I'm only seeing one pair of feet, but they're looking pretty symmetrical to me. So nice job, Jeannie. Yeah, don't, yeah, everybody else can look down at their feet or just feel how their feet are on the floor. Feel the length of the legs, the flatness of the legs on the floor, the weight of the legs on the floor. Notice if they're feeling much more similar now than they did in the beginning of the lesson. What about the two arms, the palms? Are the palms in a similar position in relationship to the floor? And again, the length of the arms, the flatness of the arms, the weight of the arms. You may notice more of the pelvis on the floor, the weight of the pelvis feeling more evenly on the floor. Same thing with the rib cage. You may even notice the back of your head contact changing a little bit. It may feel a little bit more evenly distributed on the back of your head. And just feel the whole of the two sides, your whole right side, your whole left side, and compare the two. Compare what's very different now than when you started. And slowly turn to the side. Take your time turning to the side and notice how you can use both sides of yourself to turn to the side, right? One side of you's turning to the floor, the other side of you's turning away from the floor. So how do you organize both sides of yourself to help with that task? Think how you can use both of your sides to slowly move towards the sitting position. Spend a couple of moments in sitting. Open up your eyes, breathe, take in where you are, take in the world. It is a moving meditation that we do, so sometimes you just want to slowly bring yourself back out of that meditative state. When you're ready, you can slowly move towards standing. Again, think about the two sides, how you shift your weight from one side to the other side. Yeah, slowly let yourself come up to stand. And when you stand, just find a comfortable place to stand. If you need to adjust your feet a little bit, you can adjust your feet. Just find a nice place to put your feet that feels comfortable. And give yourself a few moments to settle in after a lesson. I noticed that there's some integrating with the nervous system going on. So you may feel a little bit of shifting, which is fine. Your nervous system is just getting a sense of where you are now, what may be different, what may have changed. So just kind of stay with that a little bit. And if you open your eyes, you may notice your horizons changed. Notice how balanced and steady you feel on your feet. How connected you feel over your feet. May feel taller, lighter, more together. Shift your weight on one foot and then the other foot and notice if anything's different. Compare the two sides. Notice if one side of you got a whole bunch better. Right? And you can think like you're pouring your weight into one leg, like one leg's a cup and you're pouring a glass of water in it. And then you're pouring the weight out of the other leg. So you're pouring the water out of the other leg. So one leg becomes full of weight and one leg becomes empty of weight. Right? That's how we're using this idea of both sides of ourselves. And you can do both at the same time, right? You can pour the weight into one leg as you empty the weight of the other leg. Just like we did during the lesson. Turn, look over one shoulder. Notice what that's like now, and turn and look over the other shoulder. What's changed? What's improved? And again, you're going to notice it's a turning, but you're going to notice certain parts of you lengthen in this turning movement and some parts of you shorten in this turning movement. So notice how you do that. How you can blend the two together to make a seamless turning. And come back to the center. And then notice as you walk, notice how you can do a blending of stability and mobility. So as your weight pours into the one leg and you stabilize, the other leg is free to move. And just notice that we get a lengthening and shortening too. Notice how parts of you get longer and other parts get shorter. You may notice something happening in your rib cage as you walk. You may feel one part of the ribs opening while the other part closes, right? Kind of like an accordion going a little side to side. See how the ribs play a part in walking? Notice the diagonal. We played with the diagonals at the end of the lesson. What diagonal gets longer, what gets shorter? And notice that in the front, it's one certain way. So it's the diagonal in the front gets long, but as the diagonal gets long, gets in the front gets long, the diagonal, that same diagonal on the back of you gets shorter. So not only do we have a side-to-side shortening and lengthening of the diagonal and walking, but we have a front-to-back lengthening and shortening going on there too. And you can kind of play with all of that. So think there's a big X on your back, like you had those cross suspenders on the back of you, and just notice the back diagonal and how that back diagonal moves, and notice if that changes the way you walk. See if you can blend those two diagonals together. Jeannie, that looks lovely. That's really nice. Especially when you're walking away from the camera, I can see that you got your back diagonals dialed in nicely. And that's our lesson for today. Thank you, guys.